Hi, hello, how are you? I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Maddie, and I'm a multi-genre author of upmarket fiction. And if you're not new here, thank you so much for coming back. It means the world to me. In today's video, I will be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of September. I finished 2 books because I was on the brink of burnout for the latter half of the month, but we got through it. I listened to my body and rested. How annoying, but it worked. And so during that time, short form content did win the What Am I Doing game quite a bit, but I read really good books. I DNF'd one book, which I normally wouldn't share because some people think it's bad form as an author to talk critically of other books. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I also don't want to have controversy be the core of my brand. But I was so excited for this book and I really want the vibes that I felt I was promised. So I am going to be talking about it just as a plea that if you know a book similar or that has those vibes, to please tell me so I can fill that hole in my heart. And then I'm going to be briefly talking about my current read, which I also normally wouldn't do, but when I show it to you, you'll understand why, that it is making an appearance on a reading wrap-up video. My first read of September was Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler. This is a story that takes place in an alternate US 2024. Lauren is our protagonist, and she is a young Black woman, and she lives in a United States that has pretty much, if not completely fallen, it is mostly crumbled, and it has fallen due to societal, economic, and environmental collapse. She lives with her family in a walled community, and this community is only safe because of the wall. Outside of the wall, it is very much a barren wasteland where people are fighting to survive. There is an incredible amount of drug use, with one of the most popular drugs inspiring this desire to commit arson, and it is wreaking havoc along an already ravaged western coast. When something happens and it pushes her out of the community, she's forced to go north in search of any opportunity, though she also is developing this religion that she sees as the truth because her father was a preacher, that she sees as the truth, called Earthseed. If that sounds super interesting, it is, and I highly recommend this book. I loved it. While I was reading, I was really impressed by Butler's very blunt, yet still rhythmic, engaging prose. The thing about this book is there are a lot of heavy moments, and I would say that it is graphic without being explicit. So it was still very hard-hitting, and moments that were extremely heavy without it just veering into this torture porn area where it's just discomfort for shock value. It was very intentionally done. But again, it was still, there were moments that were like, oh my God, very heavy. But it really made sense for the state of the world that Lauren has found herself in. And I really liked her character. She's definitely not a perfect or good character. She's very nuanced, very layered, and I could really understand how her upbringing and experiences of this very brutal United States has built her to be the way that she is. The world building was very interesting as well, especially since I had learned about this book coming on the heels of a lot of the environmental crises, like all the fires happening in California, and people were drawing parallels to the environmental collapse in this world. It barely rains in California, and when it does, people are gathering and saving all the water that they can because water is so expensive, and any goods really, it's very expensive. So you really don't get a lot of new stuff. The consumerism that like we see as just our everyday part of living definitely is not happening here, because if you have money, it's going to go towards food or water. I think in this community, there's only like one television. So it's very interesting to kind of pick up on ways that things that are happening now, they were brewing back in the 90s when Butler wrote this. And while I definitely don't think we are anywhere near this like almost Mad Max level collapse, I can see elements of it, right? Like I can see the fractures in our systems, in the institutions. Even though it is bleak, there's definitely a strong thread of hope in this novel as well. And I think that that is really the important takeaway of this novel, at least it was for me, is finding that community, and that even though things are bleak or bad, or that I wished they were not happening, I can still have hope. I can still work towards a better tomorrow and still hope for the future. This book has a sequel, Talents of the Sower, I believe, and I have not read that yet, but it is definitely on my TBR because I really want to see how Lauren develops her Earthseed communities and what happens next, and how Butler kind of explores that community-based religion in a very brutal, broken down society. My next read was a reread, and it was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Of course, I had to read this book in September. It is the quintessential dark academia novel. The Secret History follows Richard Papin as he transfers to this liberal arts college in Vermont, and he is taken up with these 5 Greek students, and he then joins the class, and then he and then 4 of the students in that group end up killing the 5th member, or I guess 6th, of Richard. And then the novel really explores like the lead up and then the fallout of that murder. And if you're like Maddie, the murder seems like a very big plot point to give away. It's the first sentence of the book. The first time I read this was 5 or 6 years ago, so I was really roughly the age of the characters, just like a year or two older. So reading it again was very interesting, and seeing how my relationship to this book changed. I loved it so much more on the reread, and picking up on all the nuances that I missed the first time because I was learning the story for the first time and I didn't know quite what to expect. One of the biggest differences that I found from the first to the second time in reading this book is realizing how young these characters are. Just reading and realizing like, oh my god, they're actually so young and so stupid. Since we're seeing this through the eyes of Richard, and at first he is very taken with this group of 5 Greek students, and so you're kind of pulled into that romanticization of them and the romanticizing of this like dogged pursuit of ancient Greek, and cutting yourself off from all other arms of the university. It does have a very cult-like mentality as you get into it, and that feeds into the themes of obsession that are present throughout this novel. But when Richard finally gets into it, he is swept up in this like pursuit, this singular pursuit. And it's really interesting that this has become like the face of dark academia, when it is a very much a critique of certain aspects of academia. But I think that that is kind of the point of the subgenre, and then that is very different from the aesthetic. I really, really loved it. Really enjoyed seeing just how much that cult-like mentality fueled this, and finding it really interesting. I can definitely understand why people don't like this book. One of my author friends said that they DNF'd this book because they were like, it is just a bunch of people like devaluing human life. And I was like, yes, I think that's what I like about it. But yeah, I can definitely understand why this would not be a favorite, and it is a denser read as well. So I understand. I really loved this, and I loved it more the second time. Now we've moved on to the DNF. This is not something that I would normally put on my platforms, but this is a plea more than anything. I DNF'd Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I was so excited for this book because this also had dark academia vibes. This follows two girls that were in this boarding school during the Gilded Age of 1900, and they were like into each other, but of course at that time it was not a thing, or you would be very severely punished. So I did not get past the third chapter, and I'll tell you why. It said horror comedy, but it also has like satire. So I think I was expecting something that was a little more serious, perhaps. And it's not that I hate comedy, but I hated the humor in this book. Number one, the narrator is this like disembodied, all knowing entity. It's not necessarily a character or just an impartial, like, third person narration. The narrator had a personality and I hated it. It was just very millennial humor, online millennial humor coded. That in a way, even though this book was released in 2020, I think it still would have felt dated. I don't even know if it's dual timeline, but the first chapter is about their murder, and it is just all telling, no showing, and the murder is pretty like abnormal and it should be spooky, but it was just so bogged down. At one point, like one of the characters, the narration is like, nobody likes Charles. Charles sucks. And it's like, yeah, but I wanted to draw that conclusion on my own. And since you're telling me so much in the direct narration, I actually don't hate Charles anymore. I don't know, just being told it makes me want to be contrarian, and I just did not care for that. And again, like it was just so much telling, and it seemed like all the focus was on this narration, and that is not why I'm reading the book, for your not funny narrator. I wanted it for the story. I was getting pretty heated as I was reading this. So I was like, why am I going to keep putting myself through this? I don't have to. I can DNF it, and I can make sure someone who will love this book and find it funny can have it. And I beg of you, if you have any sapphic dark academia or satirical critiques on celebrity and whatever, let me know, because that's what I'm looking for. Finally, my current read, as you can see, is a brick of a book. And I am this far on page 386. It's almost like a full length. I am loving this book. It is so much fun. This is a really great translation. I mean, I feel like you cannot go wrong with the Penguin classics. I will always say this whenever I read a classic. My favorite thing about the classics is that you realize just how little people have changed. For the channels in which we communicate are different. We are living very sped up lives now because we can do everything in an instant. And I'm not saying, there aren't any changes, but in general, human nature is human nature, and it has been for hundreds and hundreds and thousands of years. And I think that's one of my favorite things about classic lit. And Alexander Dumas is very funny. The characters are funny, and that's where I like to find my humor, not in the personality of the narrator. It is interesting, and I'm excited to see what the rest of the pages hold, and I will let you know my thoughts on them in the next reading wrap up. Since this is such a huge book, I did want to mention it because, it has taken me a few days to get that far. So those are all of the books that I read in the month of September, and that is all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far. If you enjoy these reading wrap-ups, or I post a lot of writing vlogs as well, that's primarily what I post, then subscribe and follow along with the journey. I'm working on drafting a novel right now. But yes, thank you so much. Let me know what you're reading. Please give me recs for Sapphic Dark Academia books, and I will see you in the next one.